This is the Bots and Bosses podcast, the only show where artificial intelligence, emerging tech, and digital disruption meet real world business. Presented by technologist, author, and no-nonsense navigator of the future, John Binks. It's Tech Talk without the jargon. Now, let's deep dive.
Welcome to the Bots and Bosses podcast, presented by John Binks.
Glad to be here for this one.
This is episode 38.
Time really flies, doesn't it?
It really is, and originally aired on April 18th, 2026.
Let's get right into it.
Yeah, so usually when we think about security, we tend to think in purely physical terms, right? Like you lock your front door at night, maybe you set a home alarm.
Right, you lock the car.
Exactly. And you just assume that, well, if the bad guys are outside, then you and your family are totally safe inside. The very comforting, a very binary way of looking at the world.
It is, yeah, because it relies on a very clear boundary, a physical perimeter that you can, easily control and monitor.
Right. But then you look at your phone, you look at your inbox, and you suddenly realize that this physical perimeter means, well, absolutely nothing anymore.
Not a thing.
The threat isn't outside trying to pick your lock. It's already sitting in your living room, buzzed in your pocket.
Yeah.
And terrifically, it might even sound exactly like your best friend.
That's the scariest part.
It really is. In 2025, that threat turned our own psychology against us, and it scaled into this unprecedented $20 billion criminal industry.
Just massive.
So we're going into a custom-tailored deep dive today. We're looking at the Federal Bureau of Investigation's 2025 IC3 annual report.
Which is actually their 25th anniversary of cybercrime tracking, right?
Yes, exactly. Their 25th anniversary. And we're combining that with my own recent analysis article, which I titled The 20 Billion Wake-Up Call.
Which was a great read, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, the mission today is to really unpack how this happened. We need to look at the mechanics of how artificial intelligence is supercharging these crimes, and most importantly, how you can protect yourself when your own trust is actively being weaponized against you.
Right, because the sheer scale of this economic drain is really where we have to begin. I mean, if you are listening to this and still picturing cyber criminals as, rogue hackers in dark hoodies furiously typing green code to break through firewalls.
Like in the movies.
Right, exactly like the movies. If that's your mental model, you are operating on a dangerously outdated view. We really have to look at the actual mechanisms of how this money is moving today.
So let me just throw some raw numbers out there to set the stage. In 2025, the IC3 received over 1 million complaints, like 1,008,597 to be exact.
Unbelievable.
And the total losses hit a record-breaking $20.877 billion. That is a 26% increase just from 2024.
It's just exponential growth.
It is. And if you average that out, it's a loss of over $20,000 per victim.
Right.
For context, when the IC3 started tracking this back in 2001, they were getting maybe a few thousand complaints a month.
Right.
Today, they're averaging 3,000 complaints a day.
Which basically means more than 2 people are falling victim every single minute.
Wow. Okay, let's unpack this. Because the most crucial insight from my analysis isn't just the volume of the money, it's the method. Fully 85% of all reported losses stem from cyber-enabled fraud.
Yes. Fraud being the key word there.
Right. The top losses aren't coming from zero-day exploits. Those highly sophisticated secret flaws in software code that hackers use to quietly break into networks.
No, the technical hacks are actually a minority of the financial loss.
Exactly. Instead, the money is just bleeding out through investment fraud, which hit $8.6 billion, and business email compromise, which hit $3 billion. So why has psychological deception become so much more profitable than traditional brute force hacking?
Well, it comes down to basic economics, really. It's the path of least resistance.
How so?
Well, bypassing a modern multi-million-dollar corporate firewall is incredibly difficult. It requires specialized technical skill, massive computing resources, and it carries a very high risk of detection. So why spend weeks trying to technically pick the lock on a bank vault when you can just
trick someone into opening it?
Exactly. You just forge the bank manager's face, their voice, their ID badge, and have a legitimate employee open the vault for you from the inside. Humans are simply the softest targets.
I'm glad you brought that up because it reminds me of a vampire. They can't come in unless you invite them.
That is a perfect analogy, actually. They need your active participation.
Right. So I want to break down exactly how that works in practice. How does a business email compromise actually play out on the ground? because it sounds so simple, yet it's draining billions.
It's all about weaponizing corporate hierarchy and urgency. So these criminal syndicates, they monitor a company's structure. Often they're just scraping public data from professional networking sites.
So they know exactly who is who.
Right. They figure out who the CEO is and who works in accounting, and then they wait. They wait until they know the CEO is traveling.
Oh, like if they post about being at a conference or on a flight.
Exactly. Once they know the boss is unreachable, they spoof an email to a junior accountant. The email says something like, "I'm about to step into a confidential merger meeting. I need you to wire $500,000 to this vendor immediately to secure the deal."
Wow.
And they always add, "Don't call me, I can't answer my phone right now."
So they isolate the victim and apply immense time pressure.
Precisely. And the employee, they think they are helping the company. They are following authority. The criminals aren't hacking the accounting software at all. They're exploiting the victim's inherent desire to do a good job and, frankly, to avoid angering their boss.
But stealing the money relies on that deception being basically flawless. And because of the massive leaps in artificial intelligence this past year, criminals aren't just spoofing text-based emails anymore.
No, not at all.
They are generating entire synthetic identities. I mean, the IC3 received over 22,000 AI-related complaints in 2025, which resulted in almost $900 million in losses.
It's terrifying how fast that sector is growing.
We saw over 19 million lost to AI-enhanced confidence and romance scams. 5 million went to what they call distress scams, and nearly 13 million to employment scams. I have to say, I'm genuinely struggling to understand how a deepfake actually fools a hiring manager in a live video interview.
Well, think about the typical setup of a remote job interview today. You're usually looking at a compressed video feed on a standard, video call platform.
Right. The quality isn't always great anyway.
Exactly. So the scammer uses software that takes a single photo of a real person, perhaps a stolen identity, and maps it over their own face in real time. As the scammer speaks, the AI animates the stolen face.
Wait, really? Just in real time?
Yes. The technology is so advanced now that it perfectly replicates blinking, head movements, and all those subtle facial expressions.
But wait a second, there has to be some kind of tell, right? Like a glitch or something.
Well, the only real red flag is that occasionally the lip movements might lag a fraction of a second behind the audio, or the rendering might blur slightly if the scammer moves their hands directly in front of their face.
Okay, so if you're really paying attention, you might catch it.
Maybe, but in a professional setting, the hiring manager usually just assumes it's a poor internet connection.
Wow, that's true. I would totally just think it's bad Wi-Fi.
Right. So the company hires this quote unquote perfectly qualified candidate. They ship them a corporate laptop and they hand over internal login credentials.
And now the scammer has direct access to the company's internal network to deploy ransomware or steal proprietary data.
Exactly. They just walk right through the front door.
That is incredibly invasive. And the distress scams seem even more manipulative, if that's even possible.
Right.
Because it used to be a random voice on the phone saying, your grandson is in jail. How is AI changing that dynamic?
Dramatically. I mean, criminals now just scrape a 3-second audio clip of your family member from a public social media video.
3 seconds is all they need.
That's all it takes. They feed it into an AI voice cloning tool. They type out what they want your grandson to say, and the software generates an audio file that sounds indistinguishable from his actual voice.
That is bone-chilling.
It includes his specific inflections, his breathing patterns, his exact cadence, and then they call you in the middle of the night sounding panicked, asking for bail money. The emotional manipulation is instantaneous.
So wait, the old advice we all grew up with, look for typos in the email, listen for weird phrasing on the phone. That is essentially completely useless now.
Completely useless. What's fascinating here is how AI has completely flipped the scamming model. Historically, scams were a numbers game, right?
Yeah, send a million emails and hope one person clicks.
Right. And those poorly worded emails from a quote-unquote foreign prince, they were actually a deliberate filtering mechanism.
Really? The bad grammar was intentional.
Yes. They wanted skeptical people to opt out immediately so they wouldn't waste their time trying to con someone who would eventually figure it out anyway.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
But now AI chat generators allow them to hold thousands of nuanced, highly specific, and flawless conversations simultaneously. They can scale perfect personalization. It's a whole new ballgame.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because stealing the money is only half the battle. If an AI clone tricks you into sending 50 grand, they can't exactly wire that to a standard domestic checking account without the bank or the authorities freezing it immediately.
Right, the traditional banking system would flag that in a second.
So they need a shadow financial system to clean the money. And that is where cryptocurrency becomes the backbone of this entire operation.
It really is the engine making this all possible.
The data shows crypto is involved in over half of all financial losses. That's $11.366 billion across more than 181,000 complaints.
Right, because to execute these massive untraceable payouts, you absolutely need a decentralized system that bypasses traditional banking regulations entirely.
And crypto investment fraud alone makes up $7.2 billion of that total. I really want to walk through the mechanism of what they call the long con, or pig butchering, because the psychology behind it is just devastating.
Yeah, the term pig butchering is gruesome, but it is highly accurate. They essentially fatten up the victim before the slaughter.
How does it usually start?
It often starts with a seemingly innocuous text message like, "Hey, is this John?"
And you just reply, "No, wrong number."
Right. But instead of moving on, they apologize and strike up a polite conversation. Over weeks or even months, they build a rapport, a friendship, sometimes even a romance.
Just slowly building trust.
Exactly. And eventually, they casually mention how much money they're making trading crypto on a specific platform.
And then they send you a link to that platform.
Exactly. And the platform looks entirely legitimate. It has market charts, customer support chats, everything.
So it looks real.
Totally real. You put in $100 just to try it out, and the dashboard shows your investment doubling in a week. They even let you withdraw a little bit of that profit early on to prove it's real and to build your confidence.
Which, of course, prompts you to invest even more.
Yes. You invest your savings, maybe your entire retirement fund. The dashboard shows you're a millionaire. But
all fake.
Completely fake. That dashboard is a total fabrication. Your money went directly into their private wallet the moment you transferred it. When you finally try to withdraw your millions, they tell you there's a 20% tax or some administrative fee you have to pay first.
Wow, they just try to bleed you one last time.
They bleed you one last time, and then the platform completely vanishes.
That is just heart-wrenching. Let's take a quick pause right here. If you are enjoying our podcast, please click like and follow our show.
We really appreciate the support.
And remember to tell your friends about our show.
Okay, let's get back into it. The scale of this implies an immense amount of labor. I mean, one person cannot text 1,000 victims for months on end while simultaneously managing fake trading platforms and customer support chats.
No, it requires a massive workforce.
Right. And the data reveals this isn't just a handful of individuals in a basement. These are massive organized criminal operations based primarily in Southeast Asia. And this brings us to the absolute darkest element of the entire ecosystem. These scam centers are essentially industrialized corporate supply chains of crime, and they are largely staffed by victims of human trafficking.
That is just horrifying.
It really is. Criminal syndicates lure people across borders with fake job advertisements for tech support or translation roles, and once they arrive, their passports are confiscated.
Oh my God.
They are locked in fortified compounds, and they are forced to execute these exact scams under severe threat of physical violence.
I mean, that is a full-blown human rights crisis on top of a financial one. But I have to push back on the tracking aspect here for a second.
Sure.
If the blockchain is a public ledger, meaning anyone can see the transactions happening in real time, shouldn't it be incredibly easy for the FBI to just follow the money? Why is it so hard to recover these funds?
That is a great question, but it really comes down to velocity and obfuscation.
Okay, explain that.
Well, the blockchain is public, yes. You can see wallet A sending funds to wallet B, but you don't know who actually owns wallet B. And scammers don't just send it to one wallet.
They split it up.
Exactly. They use automated scripts to instantly splinter the stolen funds across thousands of different wallets in a matter of seconds. Then they pass those funds through cryptocurrency mixers or tumblers.
What are those?
They're services that blend the stolen coins with thousands of legitimate transactions to completely obscure the original trail.
So by the time the victim even realizes they've been scammed, the money is already fragmented and washed clean.
Exactly. And this is why the IC3's recovery asset team developed what they call the financial fraud kill chain.
How does that work?
It relies entirely on speed. When money is first stolen, it hits an initial recipient account. We call this the first hop. Scammers immediately try to move it to a second or third international account, which is the second hop.
Okay, following so far.
The kill chain process is designed to initiate immediate freezes on those subsequent accounts by coordinating directly with financial institutions before the money can be tumbled into the broader crypto ecosystem.
Wow, so they have to act incredibly fast. And these proactive steps are actually showing results. I mean, since 2024, specialized units like the U.S. Attorney's Office District of Columbia, Scam Center Strike Force, and Operation Level Up, they've disrupted these networks and saved over $500 million.
It's a significant recovery, but again, it requires catching the transaction almost the exact moment it happens.
Yeah, that makes sense. It is incredibly easy to hear these macro numbers, billions of dollars, thousands of crypto wallets, massive supply chains, and just completely lose sight of the actual people being targeted.
It becomes abstract very quickly.
It does. But the demographic data in the IC3 report paints a very clear, highly analytical picture of who these syndicates are going after. It's essentially two distinct vulnerable groups.
Yeah.
The elderly and minors.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, criminal enterprises treat this exactly like corporate market research. They are completely data-driven. They are looking for specific, exploitable vulnerabilities.
Let's look at the 60-plus demographic first. They suffered a staggering $7.7 billion in losses across over 201,000 complaints. They're getting absolutely hammered by the investment scams we just talked about, as well as traditional tech support scams.
And the motivation there is purely financial. I mean, seniors hold the vast majority of accumulated wealth in this country.
True, they have the nest eggs.
Right. They have retirement accounts, paid off homes. The criminals exploit generational gaps in technological fluency. They pose as Microsoft or Apple support. They throw a terrifying pop-up on the victim's screen claiming they have a virus.
Oh, I've seen those, the loud beeping ones.
Yes. And they use that panic to gain remote access to the victim's computer and ultimately drain their bank accounts.
It's sickening. And then you look at the other end of the spectrum, minors, kids 17 and under. Financially, the aggregate losses are much smaller, right? About $67 million.
Yeah.
But the psychological threats are absolutely devastating. There is a massive rise in sextortion, with over 11,316 complaints for those under 20.
The mechanics of sextortion rely entirely on psychological leverage.
How does it typically happen with kids?
Well, the scammer creates a fake profile on a social media app or a gaming platform, posing as a peer, like another teenager. They spend time grooming the minor, eventually convincing them to send compromising photos or videos.
And once they have the photo.
The very second they possess that media, the trap snaps shut. The friendly peer instantly pivots into an extortionist. They threaten to send the images to the child's family, their friends, and school administrators unless they pay a ransom, usually in untraceable gift cards or cryptocurrency.
And kids simply lack the life experience to realize that a threat from a stranger on the internet isn't the actual end of the world. They just panic.
Exactly. Their brains are still developing. They can't see a way out.
The report also mentions an incredibly disturbing online group known as 764. This group actively coerces children into self-harm on live streams. The situation is so severe that the IC3 had to refer over 5,700 minor-involved submissions directly to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. What does this all mean? We are watching an industrialized system prey on the weakest members of society at both ends of the age spectrum.
It's deeply tragic, but it highlights exactly why the IC3's role as a central data aggregator is so crucial. By compiling all these individual tragedies, law enforcement can identify the macro trends, pinpoint exactly who needs the most protection, and allocate their resources effectively.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's hard to hear all this without feeling entirely overwhelmed or just helpless. But the data also details how international authorities are actively striking back. The IC3 isn't just some passive complaint box. It facilitates 365 coordination around the globe.
Because the crimes are borderless, so law enforcement must operate borderlessly as well. We are seeing a massive tactical shift right now.
Moving away from just defense.
Exactly. We're moving from purely defensive posture, like just advising people to use two-factor authentication, to active, aggressive disruption of the criminals' operating environments.
And a prime example of that is in the 2025 report. They talk about Operation Chakra. The FBI collaborated directly with India's Central Bureau of Investigation, the CBI. Since 2022, they've executed 27 joint operations, resulting in 475 arrests.
That's huge.
And a major breakthrough happened in December 2025. They raided a massive call center in Noida, India. These scammers were defrauding U.S. citizens by impersonating government agencies. like mimicking the DEA and the Social Security Administration.
Right, and the significance of a physical raid cannot be overstated. They aren't just sending cease and desist letters or blocking IP addresses anymore. They are literally kicking down doors.
It sounds like an international game of whack-a-mole, but with actual physical consequences.
That's a good way to put it. In that Noida raid alone, they confiscated hardware, arrested the operators, and dismantled a network that had already stolen $48.7 million.
Preventing so much further loss. Furthermore, domestic initiatives like Operation Winter Shield and recent executive orders are targeting the U.S.-based infrastructure that these foreign scammers use.
Right, because foreign scam centers often lease servers right here in the United States.
Why do they do that?
To make their web traffic and phone calls appear domestic. It bypasses geographic security blocks. If the call looks like it's coming from Ohio, you're more likely to answer it.
Right.
So the Scam Center Strike Force is actively seizing those U.S.-based facilities. They're effectively severing the digital supply lines and cutting off foreign scammers from American internet service providers.
Okay, so to summarize the journey we've been on today, we are looking at a $20 billion criminal industry that has evolved from hacking machines to hacking human psychology. They are fueled by the deceptive power of AI to generate perfect clones, and they rely on the shadow infrastructure of cryptocurrency to move the money.
That sums it up perfectly.
But international authorities are striking back and physically dismantling these networks.
Yes. However, while law enforcement does that heavy lifting, the final line of defense is always going to be the individual.
It means the old rules of the internet no longer apply to you. It has never been more important to audit your own social media footprint and electronic interactions. If an AI can clone your voice from a 3-second video, you have to be deeply diligent about what you share publicly.
Absolutely.
If someone calls you asking for money, even if it sounds exactly like your spouse or your child, you have to hang up and verify it independently.
It really forces us to confront a profound question as we look to the future. I mean, if artificial intelligence can now perfectly mimic the voice of your boss, your bank, or even your own mother, what will proof of identity actually look like 5 years from now?
Wow. Are we moving toward a future where we need a secret family password just to safely answer a phone call?
It's a chilling thought, but it's a reality we all need to be preparing for right now.
Definitely something to mull over. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive. Stay curious, and please stay safe out there. Today's show was human-inspired and powered with AI assistance.
Always a pleasure.
Be sure to visit us, www.botsandbosses.com.
See you next time.
Remember, the bots are getting smarter, but you're still the boss.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Bots and Bosses podcast. Remember, the bots are getting smarter, but you're still the boss. For now, see you next time.